as long as you feel safe in the car, it's very exhilarating to go fast. I believe the fastest that I have actually gone was in a Monza race in Italy, and that was about 210 miles per hour. Quick reaction time, being able to endure long, hard races, and keeping your concentration. I think that those are some of the most important skills that a driver must have, and plus just downright being not afraid to go to the limits.
So after the TFA, or during, tell us a little bit about the 935, the 935.
Okay. The 935, basically that story is a fantastic opportunity that I had. I was called to test in and I'm going to get the exact model of it. It was a 935 K4, and it was John Fitzpatrick Racing's K4. And Jim, I was asked to test in the car because the sponsors wanted me to run at the Riverside Los Angeles endurance race, and it was a 6-hour race, and they were testing me to see if I could run the car and co-drive with Jim Busby and also Vern Schuppan from Australia. I was honored to take that test. However, anybody who's getting ready to go into a test session, especially if you know how that test session is going to come out, it's dependent on how good you do. Suddenly you do your homework before. So I started calling Bob Aiken, called just about every team, John Paul Jr. and Sr., and the Whittington brothers. I called all of them. I said, listen, I need to get some time in the car before I have the test. So I wasn't going cold turkey.
Right.
And unfortunately, all of those teams were not available. They were very helpful verbally, but they said, it's just right after Sebring and Daytona. We need to get the cars totally torn down and built back up. They're not even available to drive. So I went and did the test in the 935 cold turkey, and did a great job in it. It was definitely a very high horsepower car. In fact, I'll just double check my notes here. It was a 215 mile per hour car, 900 horsepower twin turbo.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. It was a little more than the 914 I'd been driving. So it was really great, and Jim Busby did a great job coaching me on it, and Porsche Panorama did an entire story about it. They wanted to know how I trained for it and everything. The test went great, but unfortunately the test session was cut to only 20 laps because John Fitzpatrick's other car blew the engine, and they needed the engine out of mine, okay? So my session was only 20 laps, and I'm a very strategic driver, so in other words, I don't take times down in big chunks. I whittle it off so that I make sure I'm doing it correctly. And so the session, after being cut short, I called the sponsor, and sometimes you have to make a choice that maybe you hopefully won't regret, but I didn't regret this. It was into the championship year, and you're out in this car. I did not feel that it was fair to my other professional drivers for me to go out in that car and compete with only 20 laps under my belt of a car that I'd never driven before. I love the car, and I think I could have done fine in it, but I did not want to jeopardize anyone else who was going for a championship. This was a one-off race. So Jim Busby said, hey, listen, I think you can do it and whatever. And I said, I just am not going to take that chance, because if something did go wrong, I mess up somebody else. So in result, the sponsors accepted that. They said, let's get you in another race and so forth. Jim Busby and Vern Schuppan did drive the race, and the times that I turned in 20 laps was the same time of what they turned in the race. So I could have possibly done it, but it's different when you're around traffic. And so I chose that it was best that I not, but it did catapult me into other things, and I think it was the right choice.
So that leads me into a different part of our conversation, because I know the pieces that you just talked about in that decision. The other piece you and I talked about was being a female race car driver in an industry full of men. And I believe part of that decision is also that, as you stated, a male making that decision, you know, if there's failure, it can be the car, it can be this, it can be that. And the concern is there's either great publicity or great negative publicity for a female to take that chance. I think it's fascinating. You know, first of all, we'll get into some of the things that you've done, because mechanically, you know the car as well as most anybody in this room. And so how was that? Let's talk about some of those experiences. A previous mentor, if you will, making an unusual comment to you as it related to you're being female.
Right.
And that's a great story. No names today, please. And maybe just some of the times where the teams didn't trust you and trust your ability to judge and diagnose the car while actually on the track. And some of the adversity you put up with that.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think we go through life, and I had mentors, and I looked up to people that I wanted to be my inspiration for me to hopefully achieve my goals. And I have to admit, I had a situation once whenever Porsche called me, and they said, listen, we want to put together a team that will be called, at that stage they had Charlie's Angels. They said, we want to call it Porsche's Angels. I said, whatever, I'm game. That works for me. And so there were 3 drivers that were going to be those drivers, and one of those was one of my mentors, okay? The other one was Kathy Rude Heimrath. I don't know if you know who she is, phenomenal driver. She didn't get to excel in the way she wanted to because she had a very bad accident, but she and I are still friends. So what happened is I went up to, someone knew that this was going to happen, and the other person who was my mentor and I looked up to was doing a speaking engagement, and so it was with a professional women's group, so they knew I wanted to meet this lady, so they invited me to the speech. So I did go up to her afterwards, and I just told her I did nothing but compliment her and tell her that I've been watching her racing for so many years, and that I truly am excited about some possible things coming in the future. And I said it's my understanding that we may be part of a team called Porsche's Angels. And suddenly the face went totally somber, and she looked me up and down, and she said, such and such person would do anything for a pretty face. And I just thought, well, I guess she's not my mentor anymore. Right. So, but either way, but I still do respect what she's done. I mean, women in racing, because it's hard to get out there and do it. Sometimes other women will feel like you're stepping into their territory. Sure. Little do they realize that if we don't encourage other women to compete, it's not just 1 or 2 of us. We need to encourage all kinds of women to get out there and compete. And what was the other part of that question?
Well, then the other part of it, so there were a couple other stories around that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the time you took your helmet off, and your hair was a little bit longer than some of the other guys.
Yeah. Helmet was a little, took the helmet off, hair was a little longer than most of the other guys in the paddock and stuff, and I just taken the class, and it was men's class, and the guy took his helmet off. I took my helmet off, and he walked up to the car and he says, oh my God, you're a woman. And I just sort of kind of looked at my anatomy, and I said, I certainly hope so. And he said, what am I going to tell my wife if you beat me? And I said, well, what's the problem with if I turned a faster time than you? And then I found out that he sold his Porsche. He never came back racing. I'm like, really?
That's a serious beatdown, Margie.
Yeah, it's a serious beatdown.
That's like, that's putting them back to bed right there.
I picked up the phone and called and said, do you want to come out and get a ride with me?
Right, exactly. Gave him a ride home.
Yeah, and I think the
to his
other
wife.
one that are you referring to the Daytona? Or are you ready for that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk Daytona.
Yeah, Daytona 24-hour. When I ran at the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1994, I needed to run that race as a test because I knew I was going to be doing the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And you run a 24-hour race not only to see if you have the endurance to do it, train for it, and you can really do it. But mainly, you need to see if you have vertigo, if you can handle seeing lights going in all kinds of directions at night, okay? So I was fine. I ran a 911 RSR with a team out of Texas, and it was great, having a good time, went out and did practices and stuff. But then we had a little problem. Usually when you come into the pit, the driver getting out will tell the next driver what the problems are. Brakes are a little soft, this, that, got a little vibration in the steering wheel, got a little clicking back here. So you watch for it. So he told me this was going on, that, and so I get in the car and I go out of the pit lane and in the back straight. You're really nailing this fantastic Porsche 911 RSR. And I get to full speed. Now you got to come to braking and turn on the right-hander. When at that stage, the throttle stuck to the floor. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. Well, I'd had this happen on my street car one time, and I knew what it was. I know it's the little, device down by the pedal. There's a little pivot hammer type device, and it bent and it got stuck. And I remember having to stamp the floor to get the throttle to come up. And that was when I was getting off the freeway one time.
Right.
So I thought, well, we'll try it here. So you don't have much time to think about it. So I was stamping on it, and it finally came up. And it sort of messes up your concentration. You're not going to turn a whole lot of fast laps when you know that the next time you stomp the throttle to go fast, it's probably going to stick to the floor again.
It promotes late braking, though.
Yeah, it does. That it does. So I went around one lap, and obviously knowing that we could have a problem with the car and possibly endanger the car and the driver, I came in and pitted, and I said, here's what the problem is. So what happened is the mechanics came up to the car, and I said, it's right under here, it's under the floor, there's a floorboard and stuff, because I used to do a lot of my own work on my car, and I knew what it was. And so he said, no, it's the slide valve injection in the back, and I said, no, it's right here, it's right here. So they're spending all this time working on the slide valve injection in the back, and I'm like thinking, I certainly hope they get this fixed. Well, take it out, try it again. Well, it did it again, okay? So at that stage I came in, and I told them, I said, listen, you need to fix this, because before I go into the wall, I'm going to pop the engine. I am not going to go into the wall and damage the car. We need to fix this car. So they kept working on the slide valve injection in the back, and so at that stage I called Paul over. I said, hey, Paul, let's go get a rope, okay? So he went and got a rope, and we tied it to the roll cage, and we drug it down and tied it to the throttle. So when they let me go, I said, listen, you guys keep working on the slide valve. I've got a pony I'm driving right here. So when I'd go into the corner, and the throttle would stick down, whoa, baby, I'd pull that sucker up, and it'd slow down. So finally, whenever I came in, I had to drive my whole session with that problem. And when I came in to pit, and the next driver, who was the hot shoe of the three drivers, got in the car. He was from Canada. And he went out and he did one lap in the car. I told him, I said, hey, you got a throttle that's sticking, but enjoy playing with that rope. And he came in white as a sheet when he came off the track, and he says, you either fix it or I'm not driving it. Then they fixed it, and it was under the floorboard.
Well done, Margie. And also nicely, you created the first handbrake.
Yes,
in a sense, it's just there,
Yeah.
at least the hand decel right there.
we got it. Worked
No,
it.
that was an awesome story. But again, it's back to being a female, zero respect, seemingly from a team. You continue to tell them what's wrong. And where is Paul in the crowd? Hey, Paul, great job with the rope on that, keeping your wife safe and making the Canadian driver white that day, white as it goes.
Yes.
So that is a great story. For YouTube, if you enjoyed what you saw today, please feel free to subscribe to our page, please. Like us on Facebook, and thank you. Have a great day.